Sir, that's my father's drawing, Maya said, her voice shaking as she balanced the silver tray in her trembling hands. She hadn't meant to speak, but while serving the billionaire's table, her eyes had accidentally fallen on the drawing displayed prominently on the stand in the center of the dining table. Those familiar lines tightened her chest, the pencil strokes, the technical notations, and most of all, the signature in the lower corner. It all struck her like a blade cutting straight into her childhood memories. Leonard Whitaker froze mid-sentence. He turned slowly toward the waitress, the young black woman in a crisp white apron standing beside the table, his face unreadable. Then, crash, the glass of Macallan tumbled from his fingers and exploded across the marble floor. Maya stood frozen, heart pounding. She hadn't meant to speak. Leonard recovered quickly, his mask of poise snapping back into place. He turned toward Maya, smiling tightly. "I'm sorry, miss. What did you say?" Maya swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just that drawing. It belongs to my father. That's his design, his signature." Gasps fluttered from a few of the suited men around the table. Someone shifted awkwardly in their chair. Leonard's jaw tightened, though the smile on his lips didn't budge. "You must be mistaken," he said coolly. "This schematic was designed by my company years ago. It's proprietary." "No, I know that signature," Maya said more firmly now. "It's my father's. George William." "What the hell did you just say?" Leonard barked, rising from his chair with a snarl. The sudden shift in tone snapped every head at the table in his direction. Maya's heart pounded. She'd only said it because she'd recognized it instantly. The schematic Leonard had just proudly displayed, framed, yellowing with age, labeled prototype. Solar compression turbine bore the unmistakable signature of George A. William. Her father, I think that's my dad's signature," Maya stammered, her knees weak. "George William. That drawing, it's his. He used to work on that at home when I was a kid." The guests, men in expensive suits, women in glittering gowns, turned to look at her, some amused, some bewildered, others outright sneering. "Are you out of your mind?" Leonard spat, stepping closer, looming over her. "Do you even know what you're saying?" "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to." Maya's voice cracked. "That design is from 2010. It came from my lab, my engineers, my money. Who the hell are you to stand there in a waitress uniform and accuse me of theft?" Maya shook her head frantically. "I wasn't accusing, I just recognized it. That signature, it's his. I swear." A snort came from somewhere down the table. One of the guests whispered behind a hand. Laughter rippled, quietly mocking, disbelieving. But not everyone was laughing. One of Leonard's business partners, a sharply dressed man with silver hair and a furrowed brow, leaned forward. "Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to keep bringing you more." One of Leonard's business partners, a sharply dressed man with silver hair and a furrowed brow, leaned forward. "Leonard, is this true? That signature, it does say George A. William." Leonard's jaw clenched. "It's a coincidence," he said tightly. "There were dozens of contributors in the early phase of the design. I bought the rights. Legally." The man didn't look convinced. He glanced again at Maya, then at the blueprint. "I'll have my legal team take a look. Just to clear the air. Let's talk again Monday." He stood, placed his napkin on the table, and exited the dining room without another word. Leonard watched him leave, color slowly rising in his face. Then he turned on Maya like a storm. "This is your fault," he snapped. "You just cost me a deal worth 8 figures. Do you even comprehend what you've done?" Maya's voice cracked. "Please, sir, I didn't mean to. I just recognized the signature. I swear I wasn't trying to cause trouble." He stepped forward. "You think you can embarrass me in front of my investors and walk away? You ungrateful little—" Leonard raised his hand and struck her, not hard, but enough to make the tray clatter from her hands, the glasses crashing onto the floor with another terrible shatter. A gasp rippled through the dining room. One of the guests stood halfway, unsure if they should intervene. Maya's face burned, both from the sting and the shame. Her eyes darted toward the door, but before she could move, Leonard snapped his fingers toward the kitchen. "Manager," Leonard barked, "get this girl out of here." She's finished. The restaurant manager, a bald man with a clipboard and a fake smile, stormed in within seconds. "What the hell is going on, Maya?" he hissed, grabbing her elbow roughly. "You've completely lost your mind tonight. Please," Maya choked, barely able to speak through the tears now brimming in her eyes. "Please don't fire me. I need this job. My mom is sick. I'm behind on rent. I didn't mean to." "You embarrassed one of the most powerful men in this city," the manager barked. "You're lucky we don't call the police for harassment. Get your things. You're done." The words hit her like a hammer. Maya dropped to her knees, the tray clattering beside her. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "Please. I'll do anything. Just don't fire me. I didn't mean." "Get up," he snapped. "You're not making a scene here." She stood, shoulders hunched, tears sliding silently down her cheeks as the manager dragged her toward the back door. The guests had gone back to pretending she didn't exist, whispers replaced by clinks of glasses and shifting chairs. The music resumed. And Maya was gone. That night, the Queens-bound subway felt colder than usual. Maya sat alone, her uniform rumpled, face still stinging, eyes empty. She clutched her purse like a lifeline. The fluorescent lights above flickered. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the slap or the laughter, the dismissal, the look in Leonard's eyes like she was dirt on his shoes. And yet, that signature had been real. She pulled a worn envelope from her purse. Inside, a photo of her and her father, taken at Prospect Park. Her small hands clutching a kite string. His broad smile warm and proud. On the back, the words, "To my brilliant girl who will change the world, Dad." The signature matched. She was sure of it. George A. William hadn't been perfect. He was eccentric, brilliant, obsessive. But he was hers. And he'd been working on something big before he vanished in 2011. The police called it suicide. The press called it a breakdown. Maya never believed any of it. That evening, as her mom rested, Maya sat at her small desk in the bedroom. The glow of her laptop lit her tired face as she typed. George A. William patent plus Whitaker. George William inventor disappearance. The results were thin. Most news outlets had forgotten the story. But one article caught her eye. A blog post from 2012, The Inventor Who Vanished and the Billionaire Who Profited, by Carl Thompson. She clicked. Her heart thudded. The article laid it all out: allegations, documents, timelines. Carl believed Whitaker had stolen intellectual property from a collaborator who went missing under strange circumstances. That collaborator's name, George William. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maya copied down Carl's contact info. A thread in the dark. A door, just barely cracked open. Her phone buzzed. "Andre. Practice ran late. Can you pick me up?" She grabbed her coat and keys. On her way out, she paused in front of the crooked photo on the hallway wall. Her father's eyes stared back, kind, strong, undiminished by time. "I'll find the truth, Dad," she whispered, "even if it destroys me." The basketball court behind the middle school was nearly empty, save for a few lingering teens throwing half-hearted shots under the fading orange sky. Maya spotted Andre sitting on the bleachers, hoodie pulled over his head, earbuds in. He looked up as she approached, his face lighting up with a tired smile. "Yo, you okay?" he asked, tossing his gym bag over his shoulder. "You look like you've been crying." "I'm fine," she lied, forcing a smile. "Let's get home. Mom's waiting." They walked in silence for a bit, Maya gripping the steering wheel of her battered Corolla a little tighter than usual. Andre fiddled with the radio, settling on a classic R&B station. The hum of Luther Vandross filled the car. Safe, familiar. Back at the apartment, Maya reheated leftovers while Andre did his homework at the kitchen table. Their mother had already taken her medication and was asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. Maya paused in the hallway, watching her brother chew his pencil, brow furrowed, completely unaware of the storm quietly gathering around their family. She went into her room and reopened her laptop. The email to Carl Thompson sat in her drafts. Subject: "My father may be the man you wrote about." She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then, with a breath, she hit send. Maya didn't expect a response right away. But less than 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed. From Carl T. Re. Your father. Maya, if what you're saying is true, you need to meet me. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., 215 East 47th Street. Don't bring anyone. And be careful. Carl. Her stomach twisted. The address was in Midtown, near a row of old office buildings, half of which had been abandoned after the pandemic. She checked the email again. No pleasantries. No explanation. Just a warning. The next morning, Maya dressed carefully. Black jeans, a hoodie under a clean coat, and boots still damp from the previous rain. She left a note for her mother saying she was at a job interview and kissed her gently on the forehead before heading out. The street was quiet when she arrived. The building at 215 looked like it hadn't seen a proper tenant in years. The buzzer didn't work. She knocked twice on the metal security door. A moment later, it creaked open. Carl Thompson was nothing like she expected. Tall, lean, mid-60s, white, with a scruffy gray beard and a Vietnam vet's posture, shoulders slightly hunched but eyes still sharp. He wore a flannel shirt, jeans, and an old Columbia jacket. His office smelled like dust, paper, and burnt coffee. "You're George Williams' girl," he said, motioning for her to sit. "I see it now. You got his eyes." Maya nodded. "You knew him." "I knew of him," Carl said. "I never met the man, but I tried to follow what happened. Until Whitaker's lawyers shut me down." He pulled a thin folder from his desk drawer, yellowed newspaper clippings, patent applications, an old black and white photo of George William at a science symposium, standing beside a younger Leonard Whitaker, back when he still had a full head of hair. "They worked together," Carl said. "George had the brains, Leonard had the money. That design solar compression turbine your dad was weeks away from filing a solo patent. Then he vanished." Maya leaned forward. "You think Whitaker made him disappear?" Carl shrugged. "I think a poor black engineer with no legal team is easy to erase. I tried publishing what I could. Most outlets wouldn't touch it. The ones that did got calls. Threats. I lost my job. Got blacklisted, but I still have the files." He slid the folder across the table. Maya opened it with reverence. Inside were copies of George's handwritten notes, scanned pages from journals Carl had received anonymously over a decade ago. One page stood out. A drawing that matched the blueprint Whitaker had framed. "There's a date on this," Maya said. "The 3rd of March 2011. That's 2 weeks before he went missing." Carl nodded. It was never a coincidence. Maya's breath quickened. "Why hasn't anyone done anything?" "Because truth without power is just noise," Carl said. "But now, Whitaker's vulnerable. The SEC's investigating him for unrelated reasons. If we move smart, we might find daylight." She closed the folder gently. "I want to help. I want to prove what he did." Carl studied her. "You sure? This won't be easy. You'll lose more than a job if you poke this bear too hard." "I already lost my father," she said, "and I lost my dignity in front of a room full of strangers while that man laughed." If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot. Laughed at me. "I'm not afraid anymore." Carl gave a faint nod of approval. "First, we need to trace the original patent. Whitaker's company filed for it under a shell name, LWT Energy Holdings. I have a contact at the Federal Patent Office. We'll see what's still on record." Maya stood, heart racing. "When do we start?" Carl handed her a burner phone. Now. Later that evening, back in her room, Maya sat on the floor surrounded by copies of her father's notes. Every line he'd written seemed alive, buzzing with urgency. The loops in his handwriting, the equations he'd scrawled in the margins, they were pieces of him. She touched one page gently, like it might vanish if she blinked. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You made a mistake today. Stop digging." She stared at the message. No name. No signature, just silence. The floor seemed to fall beneath her for a second, but she steadied herself. She saved a screenshot and sent it to Carl. "Maya, someone's watching me." "Carl, good. That means we're getting close." She locked her door and double-checked the windows. Then she returned to the notes. Her fingers traced the signature at the bottom of one page. George A. William. "Don't worry, Dad," she whispered. "They stole your name, but I still have your blood, and I'm not going anywhere." If Maya's courage moved you, tap that like button and tell us in the comments where you're watching this from. You never know, someone nearby might be watching with you too. The next morning, Maya stepped outside and immediately felt it. The weight of invisible eyes. A slow-moving sedan idled across the street, its windows too tinted, its engine too quiet. She paused, stared for a heartbeat too long, then turned and kept walking. Her keys clenched tight between her fingers like a row of tiny knives. She'd barely slept. Her mind had swirled with math equations, legal loopholes, and the sharp sting of Leonard Whitaker's hand across her cheek. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again, the look in his eyes before he hit her. Not anger, contempt. She met Carl at the Federal Records Archive near Foley Square. The building was as dull as its purpose. Gray walls, buzzing fluorescents, the air stale with old ink and bureaucracy. Carl greeted her with coffee and a grim look. "They changed the company name on the patent 2 months after your dad vanished," he said. "The address they used was a law office that's since gone under. Classic laundering move. Can we still get a copy of the original filing?" Maya asked. He handed her a printed form. "We can request a copy under the Freedom of Information Act, but it'll take time. Weeks." "We don't have weeks," she muttered. "Whitaker's already suspicious. He knows my name now." Carl rubbed his chin. "We don't need to wait. I know someone who used to work on the inside. A clerk. He owes me a favor. If he still has access, we might get the original patent draft, your father's version." Maya looked up. "And that would prove Whitaker altered it?" "It's a start." They left the archive and walked a few blocks south to a greasy diner tucked between 2 office buildings. The air inside smelled like bacon grease and burnt toast. Carl's contact was already there, a man in his 50s, balding, eyes constantly scanning the room. He went by Benny. Carl made the introductions short. "I don't want money," Benny said, tapping his coffee nervously. "But if this goes bad, I never met you." "Understood," Carl said. "I can get you into the sealed archives," Benny continued. "It won't be digital. It'll be microfilm. Old school. But the original patent application? If it exists, it'll be there. Probably hand-delivered before Whitaker's team digitized everything." "When?" Maya asked. "Tonight. Zoo." That evening, Maya dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie, her hair pulled back under a plain beanie. Carl picked her up in an old Dodge Caravan that smelled like cigars and leather. They parked a few blocks from the archive building. The streets were quiet. The city slowed into its nighttime hush. "Benny will meet us in the basement," Carl said. "Once we're in, don't talk. Don't touch anything unless I tell you. This is a federal building, we're already dancing on a wire." Maya nodded. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her spine stayed straight. Inside, the basement lights flickered as Benny let them in through a back service entrance. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of mold and metal. Benny led them down a narrow corridor to a locked room marked Archive 4C. "This is where they keep unscanned documents," Benny whispered. "It's like the Twilight Zone down here." He unlocked the room with a physical key, no digital logs, no security cameras. Perfect. Rows of metal cabinets stretched across the room. Carl moved like a bloodhound, scanning labels and numbers. Maya stood frozen, the gravity of the moment pressing down on her chest. Then Carl stopped. "This one," he said. "LWT Holdings, filed March 8, 2011. He opened the drawer, fingers flipping through the folders. There it was, a folder stamped with the original company name. William Advanced Energy, Incorporated, dated March 3, 2011. Exactly as Maya remembered. Carl laid the document on the table. Maya stepped closer. The schematic was identical to the one Leonard had framed, except here, at the bottom, was the full signature, George A. William. Below it, a notarized witness stamp and a filing receipt. "This proves it," Carl whispered. "He filed the patent before Whitaker did, and Whitaker used a renamed holding company to refile it as his own." Maya blinked back tears. "This is him. This is the proof." Carl took out his phone and snapped high-resolution photos of every page. We're not stealing it, just documenting. Maya's hands hovered over the page. My father died thinking no one would ever know. Carl looked at her. Now they will. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the corridor. Benny froze. Shit, that's not me. They shut the drawer. Carl slipped the phone into his coat. Go. Now. They slipped out through the service exit just as a security guard rounded the corner from the main hallway. Benny stayed behind to lock the door, buying them a few precious seconds. Out on the street, Maya exhaled hard. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Carl didn't speak until they were back in the van, driving north. That was too close, he said. We need to move fast, before Whitaker buries us in court orders. What do we do now? Maya asked. We build a case. The patent photos are a start, but we need someone to testify. Someone who knew your dad worked on this before Whitaker. I think I know who, Maya said slowly. My father had a friend, a woman named Sheila. She worked in his lab, I think. She came to our house a lot. I haven't seen her in years, but… Carl's eyes narrowed. Find her. If she can confirm your father's authorship, we'll have a witness. Maya nodded, but as they turned onto her block, her heart sank. A black car was parked outside her building. Not her neighbor's, not a rideshare, engine running. Carl cursed under his breath. Don't go inside. Get in the van. We'll loop around. You're being watched. Maya stared at the car, her stomach twisting. Let them watch, she said quietly. I'm not hiding anymore. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat by the living room window, the curtain pulled just enough to keep an eye on the street below. The black car was gone now, but the air still felt thick like something was crouched just outside of sight, waiting. She turned her father's old photo over in her hands. She could still hear his voice from when she was a girl. Always remember who you are, Maya. Names can be stolen. Truth can't. She dialed the last landline number she had for Sheila Thompson. It rang endlessly, then cut off. She tried again. No answer. Finally, she turned to the internet. Carl had given her access to a press database and an old-school people search engine. She tried variations of the name. Sheila Thompson, Dr. Sheila Thompson, Sheila T. Brooklyn. Eventually, she found a brief note in a 2009 NYU Science alumni newsletter. Dr. Sheila T. Thompson joins William Advanced Energy as senior research lead. That confirmed it. Another 2 hours of searching, and she had a possible match. An address in Mount Vernon, an old duplex tucked away near the edge of town. The next morning, Maya told her mother she was going to a job fair, then caught the 6:15 train out of Grand Central, bundled in a navy coat and scarf. Carl stayed behind to work on redacting her name from public searches. They were going to publish the evidence soon, but they couldn't do it until they secured witness testimony. The suburban street in Mount Vernon was quiet. Trees lined the cracked sidewalks. The houses bore the weight of age and middle-class fatigue, faded shutters, peeling mailboxes, rusted fences. She knocked. The woman who opened the door looked startled but not afraid. Late 50s. Brown skin. No makeup. Eyes sharp as ever. She wore a thick cardigan over a t-shirt that read, "Science is not a conspiracy." Yes? Maya hesitated, then said, "My name is Maya William. I'm George William's daughter." Sheila froze. "I need to talk to you," Maya continued. "Please." After a pause, Sheila opened the door wider. "Come in." The living room was cluttered but clean books stacked on end tables, potted plants on every windowsill. Maya sat across from Sheila at a small round table. "I thought maybe I'd never see anyone from George's family again," Sheila said, her voice low. "You look just like him." "I've been trying to find the truth about what happened," Maya said. "I saw a blueprint. Framed. At a private dinner, Leonard Whitaker was showing it off like it was his." Sheila clenched her jaw. "Of course he was." "You knew about the patent?" "I helped draw it," Sheila said. "We worked on that design together. Your father did the bulk of the theory. I handled the simulations. It was supposed to be a breakthrough in clean energy. George believed it could change the whole industry." "Did he ever say he was going to file the patent on his own?" "Yes," she replied. "We'd built everything with Whitaker's funding at first. But your father started to suspect something. Weird accounting. Missing files. The last week before he vanished, he came to me and said, "I'm filing it independently. If something happens to me, don't trust Leonard." Maya's breath caught. "Did you ever go public?" "I tried, but I didn't have a copy of the final patent. The lab shut down the day after George disappeared. Leonard's lawyers buried me in NDAs. I lost my tenure, my reputation. But if you came forward now, I could lose everything all over again." Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a printout of the original filing. She laid it on the table between them. Sheila's eyes widened. Her fingers traced the signature. "Where did you get this?" "I found it in the Federal Archives. With help, we photographed the full file. It's real. We have proof." Sheila sat back in silence. For a moment, Maya thought she might refuse. Then, softly, "Okay, I'll help." That afternoon, Maya and Carl met again at his office. Carl had already begun assembling a timeline, stringing together dates, documents, and witness statements like threads on a conspiracy board. "Sheila's testimony will solidify our case," Carl said, recording the conversation on a secure drive. "I'll prepare her affidavit." "What about the media?" Maya asked. "Can we release this publicly?" "Not yet," Carl said. "We go to a publication that won't flinch one with lawyers stronger than Whitaker's. I have a contact at the Observer. They've published whistleblowers before." Maya nodded. Her pulse was steady now, determined. Carl looked at her. "We're entering dangerous territory. If Whitaker catches wind of this before we publish, he'll go on the offensive. Slander, lawsuits, or worse." Maya's phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Your father made a mistake. Don't repeat it." She showed Carl. He took a screenshot, then smashed the burner phone against the desk. "Time to disappear for a while," he said. "We go dark until we're ready." Maya returned home late, taking 3 detours before walking up the stairs to their apartment. Her mother was watching Jeopardy! In the living room, a blanket wrapped around her legs. "Job fair was long?" she asked. Maya forced a smile. "Exhausting." She joined her mother on the couch, head resting on her shoulder. The smell of lavender and menthol reminded her of childhood, of safety. But that feeling was gone now. There were too many eyes, too many secrets. Later that night, as the wind howled outside their windows, Maya stared at her father's photo again. "You knew they'd try to erase you," she whispered, "but I won't let them." Across town, in a dim office on the 31st floor of Whitaker Industries, Leonard Whitaker stood with a glass of bourbon in his hand, watching the city lights. His assistant entered quietly. "We have a problem," the assistant said. "Sheila Thompson has resurfaced." Leonard turned slowly. "Then we remind her what silence is worth." Rain struck the windows of Carl's office in dull, steady pulses. The gray morning light did little to lift the gloom. Maya sat at the corner of the cluttered desk, sorting through a pile of documents while Carl prepared the press brief. Every photo, file, and affidavit they had was now organized into a digital folder labeled William V. Whitaker, Truth. "I heard back from the Observer," Carl said without looking up. "They want an exclusive. They're assigning a senior reporter. Meeting set for Friday." "That's in 2 days," Maya said. "What happens until then?" Carl tapped the burner laptop. "We keep everything offline. No cloud storage. No shared drives. We hand-deliver the files on a physical drive. If Whitaker gets a whiff, he'll bury this before it hits the public." Maya nodded, but her stomach twisted. "How much protection will we have once it's out?" she asked. Carl leaned back in his chair, sighing. "Some. The press will shield us with visibility. But he's rich, not stupid. He won't go nuclear in public. No. If he acts, it'll be quiet. Through proxies, lawyers, pressure." Maya looked out the window, mind racing. "What about Sheila?" "She's laying low. She agreed to meet with the journalist Friday. I told her to stay off her phone, cut all public contact." Just then, Carl's office phone rang, a number only a few people knew. He answered. "Carl Thompson speaking." A pause. His face went pale. Maya tensed. "What?" he said, standing. "When?" He hung up slowly, then turned to Maya. "Sheila's house was broken into." Maya stood up. "Is she okay?" "She wasn't there, thank God, but they tore the place apart. No valuables taken. Just her computer, her research notes. Photos of your father were ripped from the walls. Maya felt cold all over. It's a warning. Exactly, Carl said. They're trying to scare her into silence, or make it look like she's unstable. He crossed the room and opened a locked cabinet, pulling out a manila envelope. Inside was a new burner phone, a cheap ID, and a debit card. He handed them to Maya. From now on, you don't go home directly. You don't use the same subway routes. You don't answer unknown calls, and you sleep with your shoes on. Maya took the items, heart pounding. You think they'll come after me? Carl looked at her solemnly. They already are. That evening, Maya returned to Queens under the cover of darkness. She got off 2 stops early and walked the last 12 blocks in the rain. Her hood pulled low, scanning reflections in windows. When she stepped into the apartment, the lights were off. Andre was asleep on the couch, his school books scattered on the floor. Their mother's bedroom door was ajar. Maya peeked in, saw the soft rise and fall of her chest under the covers. She breathed out slowly and entered her own room. There was a note taped to the mirror. You think you're brave, but you're just like him, alone. She dropped the note like it was poison, spinning around her heart in her throat. The window latch was broken. Rain leaked through the crack. She rushed to check her bag. The patent files were gone. 30 minutes later, she stood in Carl's office again, drenched and shaking. They were in my house, she said. They took the photos, the hard copy, everything. Carl didn't panic. He handed her a towel, sat her down, and pulled out the backup drive. I made copies. You think I'd trust one version? Maya's chest deflated with relief. They left a note, she added, showing it to him. His jaw tensed. Typical fear tactic, psychological warfare. They want to convince you you're isolated, that no one's coming for you. But I'm not alone, she said. Not this time. Carl nodded. No, you're not, and they know it. That's why they're running scared. The next day, Carl received a message from the journalist at the Observer, Lena Cruz, a respected investigative reporter known for taking down pharmaceutical CEOs and dirty judges. Can you meet today? Whitaker's team caught wind something's brewing. I want to get ahead of the spin. They met at a coffee shop in Tribeca. Lena was in her early 40s, Latina, sharp eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses. She carried a leather notebook and an analog recorder. Old school never crashes, she said. Carl laid out the story. Maya filled in the missing pieces. Lena asked few questions but took furious notes. When Maya showed her the original patent photos, Lena stared for a long moment. You realize if this is verified, she said slowly, it's not just a stolen idea. It's fraud, intellectual theft, possibly obstruction. If Whitaker or his legal team destroyed or altered records, it could lead to a federal investigation. That's the goal, Carl said. But he'll come after you, Lena warned. He has friends in politics, on the board of 3 networks. I don't care, Maya said. He stole my father's legacy. I'm taking it back. Lena nodded. Then I'll run with it. Give me 2 days to verify everything. If it checks out, front page Monday morning. They left the cafe in silence. Maya walked a few blocks before she let herself cry quietly into her scarf. Not from fear, not from grief, but from the strange, overwhelming sense that she was finally being heard. Meanwhile, back at Whitaker Tower, Leonard stood in his private study, sipping a martini while reading an internal memo. His face was unreadable, but his fingers tapped the glass rhythmically. A junior eye entered, eyes nervous. We've confirmed the journalist's identity. The Observer is preparing something, possibly Monday. Leonard turned slowly. Buy them off. They won't take money. Threatened to expose her sources, her family, her past. The aide hesitated. Sir, there's also concern about Sheila Thompson. If she speaks, then silence her. Leonard snapped. I don't care how. The aide left quickly, and Leonard stared out the window into the darkness beyond Manhattan's skyline. I warned you, Maya, he whispered, but now, I'll bury you. The wind howled through the fire escapes outside Carl's apartment, rattling the windows and making the walls groan with every gust. Maya had fallen asleep on the couch, her coat still on, one shoe dangling from her foot, the other pressed firmly to the floor just as Carl had told her. Sleep was shallow now. Her nerves were always alert, her body still gripped by the adrenaline of the last few days. At 2:43 a.m., a knock came at the door. Not loud, but intentional. 3 short raps. She shot up, instantly awake. Carl was already on his feet, a small revolver in his hand. His face was calm, but his movements were precise. He nodded toward Maya and mouthed, "Stay low." He moved toward the peephole. "Nothing." "Who is it?" he asked, voice sharp. A pause. Then a female voice replied, "It's Sheila." Carl's eyes widened. He unlatched the bolt quickly and opened the door. Sheila stepped in, soaked from the rain, breathing hard. Her left eye was bruised, and she clutched a torn canvas tote bag to her chest. "They found me," she said. Maya rushed forward. "What happened?" "They were waiting outside my niece's house," Sheila said. "I'd been hiding there the past 2 nights. But tonight, when I left to get food, someone followed me. They cornered me in the alley behind the bodega. One of them took my bag. They said Whitaker knows what I'm planning." "Are you hurt?" Maya asked, guiding her to the couch. "No, just shaken. I lost my ID, my phone. But I kept this." She opened the canvas tote and pulled out a small external hard drive. "This has audio recordings," she said. "From the lab. Your father and I used to record our sessions. George was always afraid someone would tamper with the digital notes. So we made backups. I'd forgotten about them until tonight." Carl plugged the drive into his laptop, and Maya leaned in. A moment later, a scratchy voice filled the room. "March 1st, 2011. Testing compression ratio again. Leonard says he wants to bring in a third party. But I'm not sure. I don't trust him anymore. He's been in meetings I'm not invited to. If something happens to me, I want it on record. I invented this turbine design. I, George A. William. Alone." Maya's eyes filled with tears. Her father's voice. After all these years, clear and unmistakable, Carl exhaled slowly. That's the nail in the coffin. By morning, Carl had created a duplicate of the audio file, stored on a separate encrypted USB. Sheila was moved to a safe house in Yonkers provided by a retired friend of Carl's who used to run whistleblower protection for a local labor union. Maya returned to her apartment briefly to check on Andre and her mother. She didn't tell them everything, just that things were happening, and she'd be gone for a few more days. Her mother, pale but lucid, only nodded. "Just come back," she said softly, squeezing Maya's hand. At noon, Lena Cruz called. "I heard what happened to Sheila. I've moved up the timeline. We're running the story Sunday morning." Front page. Carl and Maya sat in silence as Lena outlined the next steps. Legal protections, non-disclosure enforcement, PR response. "And one more thing," Lena added. "We want you, Maya, to go on the record. Real name, real photo." Maya hesitated. "That'll put a target on my back." "You're already a target," Lena said. "Might as well shine a light on the one aiming." Maya looked at Carl. His face was serious, but he nodded. "It's your choice." She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision settle into her bones. "Okay," she said. "Use my name." That night, Maya and Carl sat in the small, dark kitchen of the safe house. The only sound was the soft hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old wood shifting in the cold. "Do you regret it?" Carl asked quietly. "Digging this up?" Maya stared at her cup of coffee, then said, "I regret not doing it sooner." Carl nodded slowly. "You know what comes next, right? If this article hits the way we expect, Whitaker will deny everything. He'll attack your credibility. Maybe sue the paper. Maybe you. I don't care," Maya said. "He already stole my childhood, my father. I'm not letting him steal the truth too." Carl looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, he smiled. Not the wry, bitter smile of a man who'd seen too much, but something gentler, admiring. "You remind me of someone I used to know," he said. "Someone who didn't give up even when the whole system was rigged." "Did they win?" Carl's smile faded slightly. "They didn't, but they made damn sure no one forgot them." That same hour, in the corner office of Whitaker Tower, Leonard stood in front of a wall of TV screens. each tuned to a different news channel. One of them ran a teaser. Breaking. Whistleblower comes forward in billionaire patent scandal. Full story Sunday. Leonard's face remained calm. Kill the story, he told his legal chief. We can't, the man replied. Cruz is running it through protected channels. We'd need a federal injunction. That'll take time. Then buy the damn newspaper. The Observer's privately owned. They won't sell. Leonard turned to face the window, the city sprawling beneath him like a kingdom. Then we bury her, he said. Sunday morning arrived with a tension that gripped the entire city. The cover of the Observer read, Stolen Genius, the black engineer behind the billionaire's empire. Subhead, Maya William, daughter of vanished inventor George William, breaks silence with proof of patent fraud and corporate theft at Whitaker Industries. The article was devastating. It included the blueprint photos, audio recordings, testimony from Sheila Thompson, and legal expert analysis. It painted Leonard Whitaker not as a visionary, but as a thief, one who used power, money, and fear to erase a black man's genius and rewrite history under his own name. By noon, it had gone viral. By nightfall, Whitaker Industries stock had dropped 18%. And Maya? She was trending. Number Justice for George. Number Truth Eyes Louder. Number Maya William. But just as Carl poured a quiet glass of whiskey to celebrate, his phone buzzed. A text. No number. Next time we don't knock. Makeley. By dawn, the safe house smelled of burnt toast and stale tension. Maya stood in the kitchen, barely sipping her coffee, watching the news play silently on Carl's laptop. The Observer's headline had ignited something more powerful than they had dared to hope the public was paying attention. Footage of George Williams' photo was being circulated everywhere beside his blueprints, beside Sheila's audio testimony, beside Maya's determined, tear-rimmed face from the Sunday article. People were outraged. Not just because of the theft, but because they recognized something deeper. A pattern. A system built to erase the poor, the black, the voiceless. Carl entered the kitchen with his phone pressed to his ear. No, don't speak to anyone without counsel. I'll send the full affidavit by noon. Just hold the line until then. He barked into the phone, then ended the call. Media requests? Maya asked. Carl nodded. CNN, ProPublica, NPR. Even 60 Minutes wants you. She let out a dry laugh. Yesterday I was a waitress begging not to be fired. Now they want to put me on national TV. That's how truth works. It doesn't whisper forever. But Maya noticed it. His voice was steady, but his shoulders were tense. His hands kept fidgeting with his tie. Something was wrong. What's happened? She asked. Carl hesitated. Then he said quietly, The Observer's website was hacked last night. The article was taken offline for 4 hours. Bo. What? Maya's heart skipped. Is it back up? Yes, but only after a team of cybersecurity lawyers intervened. The paper suspects it was a coordinated breach. Possibly state-level sophistication. Maya felt her skin go cold. That message, the one we got after publishing, next time we don't knock. Do you think that was connected? I think it's the opening move, Carl replied. They're playing chess. We're playing survival. He handed her a small flash drive. This contains everything. Every file, photo, affidavit, timeline. If something happens to me, or to Lena Cruz, or to Sheila, you send this to every journalist on that contact list I gave you. Maya clenched her jaw. You're talking like someone's going to die. Carl didn't respond, but his silence spoke volumes. By mid-afternoon, the counterattack had begun. Leonard Whitaker released a public video. Standing in front of the Whitaker Industries logo, wearing his signature navy suit and a slight air of practiced sincerity, he addressed the camera directly. I have been falsely accused, he began. While I mourn the tragic disappearance of George William over a decade ago, these recent claims are not only baseless, they're deeply offensive. He continued, this so-called blueprint was a collaborative effort, part of a team project funded and managed by my firm. The timing of these allegations is suspect. I will not allow my name, nor the legacy of my company, to be slandered. Maya watched the broadcast on Carl's laptop. Her stomach turned when he used the phrase, a troubled young woman, possibly manipulated by disgruntled former employees. He's calling me unstable, she whispered. gaslighting the whole country. Carl exhaled. And that's the second move, discredit the whistleblower. But the world wasn't buying it. Not everyone, at least. A group of black engineers from MIT released a joint letter in support of Maya, calling for an investigation into systemic suppression of black inventors. Former employees of Whitaker Industries anonymously submitted tips to an investigative podcast. Twitter threads popped up with timestamps, inconsistencies in Whitaker's previous interviews, even archived web pages showing George Williams' name on early research documentation. Still, the pressure mounted. At 9:37 p.m., Sheila Thompson's safe house was vandalized. No one was hurt, but the front door was spray-painted with the words, "Liar, paid, puppet." Sheila called Maya, her voice trembling but firm. "They want me to back down. I won't. But you need to be careful, baby. They're running out of options." Later that night, Maya sat alone on the rooftop of Carl's building, the city stretching below in amber light and noise. She thought about her father, how he must have felt all those years ago, when he realized the system he trusted would never protect him. The isolation, the fear. She wasn't afraid anymore. But she was angry. And somewhere in that fire of anger, she found clarity. She took out her phone and opened the recorder app. "My name is Maya William," she said softly, "and I'm not going away." Meanwhile, at Whitaker Tower, Leonard paced alone in his penthouse office. A private investigator stood at the far end of the room, arms crossed, voice cold. "She won't take the settlement." "I didn't expect her to," Leonard said flatly. "She's becoming a symbol," the man added. "The public's shifting. You wait too long, and it won't matter what your lawyers say." Leonard stared out the window. "Then we change the game." The PI hesitated. "How far do you want to go?" Leonard turned and smiled. The next morning, Carl didn't show up to the cafe meeting with Lena. Maya waited 30 minutes, then called. No answer. She texted. Nothing. She took a cab to his apartment. The door was ajar. Inside, the place was ransacked. Papers everywhere, laptop gone, blood on the floor, and carved into the wall in jagged ink, "You should have stayed silent." Maya's hand trembled as she stepped into Carl's apartment, the scent of copper and paper thick in the air. The place looked like a storm had passed through, drawers overturned, documents shredded, chairs on their sides. But it was the blood that froze her. A smear trailed from the corner of the desk to the edge of the hallway. "Carl," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Carl, please." No answer. She took another cautious step, scanning the room for movement, for breath, for any sound beyond her own pulse pounding in her ears. Then she saw it. Not Carl, but a burner phone. His backup, taped to the underside of the bookshelf, the same shelf he'd always kept locked. She tore it free, heart pounding, and turned it on. One message, audio only, time-stamped just 22 minutes earlier. She hit play. "If you're hearing this," Carl's voice rasped through the speaker, "then I've been compromised. I won't give them the drive. I've locked it. Maya, the passphrase is the last thing your father ever said to you. You told me once. Use it. Finish this. And don't trust anyone. Not the police, not the press, no one." Then silence. Maya covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. She backed away, clutching the phone, stepping over torn folders and drops of blood until she reached the hallway and then the stairwell. Down the stairs, out the door, into the daylight. A man stood across the street, watching. Sunglasses, earpiece, still. She didn't wait. She bolted. 30 minutes later, Maya was in a crowded subway car, her hoodie pulled low, backpack pressed to her chest. Her hands never left the burner phone. Her eyes scanned every person, every movement. Carl was gone, maybe dead. And now the weight of the truth of the entire case rested solely on her shoulders. She whispered to herself, "The last thing he ever said to me." She closed her eyes, trying to remember. That final morning before her father disappeared. She was 9. He was packing his bag in the kitchen. She had asked him why he worked so much. He had knelt down, kissed her forehead, and said, "Because the truth doesn't build itself, pumpkin. You have to fight for it." She opened the note app and typed it in. The USB drive Carl had given her unlocked instantly. And there it was, a hidden folder. Final, lever, inside, affidavits, contracts, deleted email exchanges between Whitaker and former partners, voice memos where Leonard himself talked about acquiring technologies from terminated employees, and a spreadsheet showing over $16 million in silent payouts to former collaborators' gag money. Maya stared at the files, breathless. This wasn't just theft. It was a criminal enterprise. Sheila met Maya at a friend's brownstone in Harlem that evening, neutral ground, safe, surrounded by old neighbors who still remembered George William as the man who fixed their heaters for free and carried groceries up 5 flights of stairs without being asked. "He's really gone?" Sheila asked. Maya nodded. "But he left us everything." They sat at the kitchen table, bathed in amber light from a dusty chandelier. Maya showed her the drive. Sheila scanned the documents, her lips pressed tight. "This," she whispered, "will tear him apart." Maya's voice was hoarse. "Then let's start pulling threads." Lena Cruz met them the next morning at a secure location provided by the Observer's legal team. The place was nondescript, an old photography studio with blackout curtains and double locks. Lena arrived with 2 lawyers and a forensic tech. When Maya handed over the drive, she said only, "Carl trusted you. So do I. But I want to be in the room when this goes live." "You will be," Lena said, her eyes sharp. "And I'll dedicate the headline to him." They began cross-verifying everything. The data held up. And the voice memos? Impeccable. Leonard had been careless. Or arrogant. Either way, he was caught. "This is enough for the Department of Justice to open an inquiry," one lawyer said. "He'll be subpoenaed." "We need to move fast," Lena added, "because once he realizes what we have, he won't hold back." Zua. That night, Maya didn't sleep. She lay awake in a borrowed room in a borrowed bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought of Carl, of his quiet strength, his relentless belief in justice. She thought of her father, how his hands always smelled of ink and machine oil, how his laugh filled a room. And she thought of her mother, who still didn't know the full truth. And of Andre, who would one day ask what really happened to the man who vanished before he could become a legend. Maya wasn't going to let that legacy die. Not again. The next morning, a press alert shook the nation. New evidence links billionaire Leonard Whitaker to fraud and patent theft. Federal investigation launched. The article broke down the recordings, the gag orders, the hush money. It painted Whitaker not just as a thief but as an orchestrator of systemic abuse, weaponizing wealth to erase others' brilliance. The Justice Department issued a statement. Senators called for hearings. Protesters gathered outside Whitaker Tower holding signs. "Truth has a name, George William." "Maya, we hear you." But Maya's moment of vindication was short-lived. Because, at 3:27 p.m., as she sat in the Observer's secure office with Sheila and Lena, a courier arrived with a manila envelope. Inside was a single photo. Carl, bound, bruised, alive. A sticky note attached read, "The story ends when we say it ends." The silence in the room after they opened the envelope was suffocating. Maya stared at the photo for what felt like hours. Carl's swollen eye, blood on his lip, a shadow of a man once unbreakable. And yet, he was alive. Sheila covered her mouth. Lena stood frozen. The color drained from her face. "They're escalating," Lena whispered. "This is no longer just about truth. It's war." Maya's voice was low, fierce. "We end it, now." Lena glanced at the note again. "The story ends when we say it ends. They're trying to bait you," she said, "make you panic, lose focus." Maya shook her head. "No, this isn't panic. This is clarity." She reached into her backpack and pulled out the USB drive Carl had given her days ago, the one he said to only use if everything fell apart. "There's one folder I haven't opened yet. He called it the failsafe. I was afraid of what was in it." Lena nodded. "Let's find out." The 3 women huddled around the laptop as Maya entered the same passphrase, "You have to fight for it." The folder opened. Inside, a single video file. Maya double-clicked. Carl's face filled the screen. It had been recorded weeks before, judging by the suit and the cleaner haircut. "If you're seeing this, I've either been taken or worse. But that means the moment has come." He leaned closer to the camera, eyes intense. "There's a hidden server, a digital vault. It contains every signed NDA, every doctored research report, every purchase order for surveillance, intimidation, even foreign shell companies Whitaker used to move money. We've been cataloging it for years through backdoors in his firm's own architecture. I just needed a trigger to release it, and now we have it. The subpoena. Carl held up a small flash drive. This key opens the back door, but it has to be plugged in from inside Whitaker Tower. There's no remote access, physical location only. I've buried the last copy of the key where it all started. Then he leaned back and gave a ghost of a smile. You'll know where to look, Maya. You always remember the details. Silence. Then Maya whispered, where it all started. She paced the room, heart pounding. Her brain raced. Her father, the invention, the night he disappeared. He said it started in the lab, Maya murmured. But that was in New Jersey. I was never there. She paused. Her eyes lit up. Unless... She ran to her backpack, pulling out the weathered photograph of her father and his team taken in 2010. In the background, a run-down industrial building with a red sign barely visible. She flipped the photo over. Her father's handwriting, Unit 12, Belmont Foundry. The day it all came alive. That's it, she whispered. That's where he built the prototype. That's where Carl left the key. The old Belmont Foundry was a forgotten piece of industrial Brooklyn, long abandoned, hidden beneath the overpass of the BQE. Maya and Sheila arrived just before dusk, cloaked in layers, hoods up, nerves tight. This is insane, Sheila muttered. If they're watching you, they're already watching me, Maya said. This ends tonight. They pried open a rusted side door. The inside smelled of iron, mold, and ghosts. Maya moved fast, flashlight in hand, scanning the room. Carl's voice echoed in her mind. You always remember the details. There, the workbench. Under it, screwed into the bottom, a metal box. She unscrewed it with trembling fingers. Inside, wrapped in plastic and sealed with electrical tape, was a red USB drive. She exhaled. Got it. But before she could turn, they heard the click. A flashlight beam. A man's voice. Don't move. Two figures stepped from the shadows, men in black jackets, armed, earpieces in. One pointed a pistol. The other reached for Maya. She didn't hesitate. She threw the flashlight into his face and ran, Sheila at her heels. They tore through the dark corridors, breath ragged, metal echoing under their feet. A shot rang out, ricocheted off the wall just inches from Maya's head. They reached the side exit, burst into the alley. A van screeched to a halt beside them. The door slid open. Get in, a voice barked. It was Lena. Maya and Sheila dove inside, and the van peeled away. 10 minutes later, inside the moving van, Maya sat panting, cradling the red USB like it was holy. Lena didn't ask questions. She just drove, fast. Where are we going? Sheila asked. To the only place with access to Whitaker's network, Maya said, voice firm. The place he'd never suspect, his own building. Lena glanced at her in the mirror. That's suicide. Maya looked her dead in the eyes. It's justice. At 11:42 p.m., the three women entered Whitaker Tower through the parking garage, using a stolen employee badge Carl had secured weeks earlier. Security was light, it was a Sunday night, and the chaos hadn't fully reached internal staff yet. Maya led the way to the 26th floor research and development. Behind a sealed server room, the entire backbone of Whitaker's private data network lay humming. Maya took the red USB, inserted it into the port. A green light blinked. Carl's voice came over the speaker system, pre-recorded, triumphant. Welcome back, Leonard. Did you really think you could bury the truth forever? The system began auto-uploading every file in the vault to 30 separate independent media servers, whistleblower platforms, and government agencies. Maya stepped back. It was done, but before they could leave, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Security was coming, and then Leonard Whitaker himself stepped into the doorway. Behind him, 2 armed men. He stared at Maya with venom. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Maya stared right back. No, I made the right one, and this time everyone's watching. Leonard's shoes echoed like gunshots against the polished marble floor as he entered the server room, his tailored coat catching the red pulse of the emergency lights. His face was stone, but his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, burned with fury. You always had your father's defiance, he said, stepping closer. It was his undoing, and now it's yours. Behind him, the 2 armed guards fanned out, weapons drawn but not raised yet. Maya stood her ground, the red USB still glowing in the server port behind her. You think this is checkmate? Leonard sneered. All you've done is leak files, unverified, out of context. The media cycle will eat it up for a week, then forget you. No, Maya said calmly, because this time, the world already knows your name. And your face. And your crimes. Lena stepped forward, holding her phone high. We're live streaming, she said. Leonard froze. What? Lena flipped the phone around. A stream on the Observer's verified account. Tens of thousands already watching. You're standing in front of stolen data, with armed men threatening unarmed women. Care to repeat anything you just said? Leonard's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to the guards, who lowered their weapons slightly, unsure now. This is illegal, he growled. No, Lena said. This is exposure. Maya stepped forward. You took my father's life's work. You tried to erase him. You buried people, paid off silence, hurt anyone who got in your way. But you forgot one thing. Leonard stared at her. I don't kit, Maya said, voice steady. He lunged toward her, pure rage overriding sense. But Sheila moved first. A fire extinguisher from the wall swung low, hard. It hit Leonard square in the chest, sending him backward onto the floor with a thud that shook the walls. He gasped, stunned. The guards reached for their weapons. Don't move, another voice bellowed. The room flooded with men in tactical gear. FBI. Drop your weapons, hands where we can see them. The guards froze, then complied. Two agents rushed forward and handcuffed Leonard as he struggled to breathe. One read him his rights. Another retrieved the red USB from the server and handed it to a tech specialist, who nodded after scanning it. Confirmed. Source matches, subpoena evidence trail. Full digital chain of custody intact. Lena turned to Maya, almost breathless. You just brought down a billionaire. By dawn, the headlines were everywhere. Leonard Whitaker arrested in patent fraud, obstruction case. Exclusive. The woman who brought down an empire. Justice for George William. The truth comes home. Protesters outside Whitaker Tower chanted Maya's name. News vans lined the block. Government officials issued statements promising broader investigations into corporate theft and suppression of minority inventors. Carl was found in an abandoned property outside Newark, alive but injured, bruised, dehydrated, but alive. When Maya visited him in the hospital, he smiled weakly. You didn't just finish what your father started, he said. You rewrote the ending. Oh. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of a packed auditorium at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She had been invited to deliver the keynote speech at a symposium on ethics and engineering. She stepped up to the podium, wearing a simple navy dress. A silver locket around her neck held a photo of her father, young, smiling, sleeves rolled up, hands stained with ink. My name is Maya William, she began. And I'm here not because I'm a genius, or a hero, or a fighter. I'm here because I remembered. She paused. I remembered that truth doesn't build itself, that silence is complicity, that legacies don't belong to the powerful, they belong to the ones who build, who imagine, who sacrifice. The room was quiet, breathless. I lost my father when I was 9. But today, I give him back to the world. George William was not erased. He was not forgotten. He was stolen. And now, he's returned. Applause erupted. Tears flowed. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of that hall, engineers old and young sat a little taller, a little prouder, knowing that sometimes truth does win. Epilogue. 1 year later, the George William Foundation for Ethical Innovation opened its doors in Harlem, offering grants, mentorship, and legal aid to young inventors from marginalized communities. Maya ran it herself. Every day, she walked past a mural on the front wall, a portrait of her father in his lab coat, blueprint in one hand, a wrench in the other. Below it were the words he told her that morning long ago. You have to fight for it. The fight had been long, bloody, painful, but it had been worth it, because now, the world remembered George William. And it would never forget Maya. Spring had just begun to show its face in New York. Cherry blossoms bloomed cautiously along the avenues, and people walked a little slower, as if the sunlight might wash away the memories of the winter that came before. But for Maya William, the seasons didn't matter anymore. Truth had won, technically, but justice was more elusive. It had been nearly 6 months since Leonard Whitaker's arrest. His empire, once a towering monument to American innovation, had crumbled like dry plaster. Stockholders pulled out. Government grants were frozen. International partnerships collapsed. But Leonard himself, still not convicted. Bail had been denied, yes, and federal prosecutors claimed to have a bulletproof case. But the trial was slow-moving. Defense lawyers dragged every hearing into bureaucratic tar. Public interest was waning, and newer scandals dominated the headlines. The media had moved on, but Maya hadn't, and neither had the threats. The George William Foundation had grown faster than she ever imagined. Applications poured in from across the country, young engineers, inventors, coders, all with big dreams and no legal protection. Maya hired a full legal team, ethics board, and security detail. She also hired Carl full-time. He walked with a limp now and often needed rest, but his mind was still razor-sharp. He ran background checks, negotiated settlements, taught the interns how to read contracts like a hunter stalking prey. But even he was getting tired. "You think taking down Whitaker was the hard part?" he asked one morning, sipping coffee from a chipped Veterans for Truth mug. "It's the rebuilding that breaks you." Maya didn't answer. She just kept reading. Her inbox had filled again, this time with messages from an anonymous sender. "He's not done. The trial is a delay tactic. They're moving something. Offshore." Carl wasn't the only one they were watching. Sheila had grown quiet too. She still worked with the foundation but no longer spoke in crowded rooms. She never sat with her back to a door. Some nights, Maya caught her standing on the rooftop, staring at nothing, whispering prayers to someone long gone. Then came the package, delivered to the foundation office in a manila envelope, no return address. Inside, a flash drive, a single Polaroid of George William, and a handwritten note. "You've only scratched the surface. Follow the money. Start in Lagos." That night, Maya met Carl and Sheila in the foundation's secure basement, the same one they had turned into a digital war room. They plugged in the flash drive. Inside were scanned invoices, bank transfer receipts, and most shocking of all, correspondence between Leonard Whitaker and a Nigerian defense contractor. The language was coded, but one phrase stood out again and again. "Prototype, Black Ember." Maya leaned back, stunned. That's what my father used to call the early version of the turbine. It was never just a clean energy project. Carl scowled. "That's not energy. That's dual-use tech. Weaponizable." Sheila crossed her arms, whispering, "That's why he disappeared." The foundation board advised caution. The DOJ said they'd look into it. The press didn't care. Another scandal overseas didn't move clicks. So Maya booked a flight herself. Destination: Lagos, Nigeria. The city was chaos and rhythm. A symphony of horns, voices, ocean wind, and rising towers. Maya met with local activists, former government tech contractors, and underground engineers. For 2 weeks, she traced ghost companies